Прежде всего следует признать, и об этом я уже говорил, что крушение Советского Союза было крупнейшей геополитической катастрофой века.
For over 40 years, the Cold War dominated the world's headlines and provided the backdrop for almost everything. And then suddenly, this happens. The dissolution of Soviet Union was a monumental event that reshaped the world as we know it. The Soviet Union emerged as a formidable global force during the Cold War. Its communist ideology and centralized planning defined its structure. This is probably the reason no one foresaw this collapse. But when it happened, the reasons were all over the place. Martin Marty, an influential American historian on Russia, in his book The Soviet Tragedy, he writes, Bolshevik's project was doomed from the start because it is at odds with the human nature.
From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs.
They used force to fit humans into a political framework which is contrary to them, and under Stalin, it became a totalitarian police state. It needed a reform post-Stalin's death, but once it ceased to apply terror, the system would fall apart, he said. By the 1980s, cracks in the system started to show. With economic stagnation, the centrally planned economy struggled to keep up with the demands of the modern society. Inefficiencies, the scarcity of consumer goods, and the burden of military spending crippled the Soviet economy, which were further aggravated by the Afghanistan war. The difference between the life standards of the Soviet Union and the West increased, yet the expenditure on military by Soviets was matched to the much richer West. Under the leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev, winds of change swept through the Soviet Union. But before they were implemented, the disaster happened. The cataclysm of unparalleled magnitude that took over 125,000 lives. Later in 2006, he described the nuclear meltdown of Chernobyl was perhaps the root cause of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Chernobyl shattered the foundation upon which glasnost and perestroika could succeed. Gorbachev's policies of glasnost, which is openness, and perestroika, which is restructuring, aimed to revitalize the system, but inadvertently hastened its demise by fueling political liberalization and free expression. And with this formed the famous coup, also called as the August coup. On Sunday, August 18, 1991, at 4:50 p.m., Gorbachev was at his Kremlin resort Dasha, when four men, including his chief of staff and high-ranking officials, asked for his audience. They demanded Gorbachev's signature on a document declaring a state of emergency and transferring his power to his vice president, Yanayev. Gorbachev refused, calling them treasonous blackmailers. At 6 a.m. Moscow time on August 19, TASS and Radio Moscow announced that Gorbachev was unable to perform his duties due to ill health, and his vice president Yanayev assumed presidential powers as per the Soviet constitution. At 12:50 p.m., Russian President Boris Yeltsin condemned the coup and called for a general strike while standing on a tank in front of the White House. The ill-fated coup collapsed on August 21, but punctuated the declining power of once dominant Soviet apparatus. The Soviet Union was on the brink of the collapse. Eventually, the Soviet Union was dissolved with the signing of Belovesia Accords by Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. The empire that once stood strong had crumbled. The trials were made by Gorbachev to change the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics to the Union of Soviet Sovereign Republic, with 8 republics. With the loss of the faith in the Soviet system, the desire for greater political and economic freedoms, and the inability of the government to address the diverse needs and the aspiration of its citizens, ultimately led to the dissolution. The dissolution of the Soviet Union marked the end of an era, with lasting implications for global politics and the lives of millions. It serves as a reminder of the complexities and challenges of implementing a socialist system. While the Soviet experiment ended, its impact and lessons continue to resonate today. We learned a lot about communism from this video. To learn more, check our description and consider subscribing to our channel.